Thank you so much for joining us today, Sadhguru. I think the audience is very interested in what you have to say. I guess to start, they define inclusive consciousness. I'd love to hear your thoughts on...
They did not define it.
They did not. Okay. Well, I was just going to ask you what's missing. So you can start.
With all due respect, they spoke about intent, right intent. They spoke about right kind of thoughts, emotions, attitudes, and to some extent actions. There is no consciousness in this. If we are understanding that the way we think, feel and act is our consciousness, no. It is like we're mistaking a plant, we're mistaking the flower for the soil. We're mistaking expressions for the source. This is something that's happening everywhere, not just here. People think by changing attitudes, their consciousness will change. No. By changing attitudes, certain actions will change. Yes, positive, beneficial, but it is not truly transformative. Change will happen, transformation will not happen. If I have to define a distinction between change and transformation, change means the residue of the past will still remain. A transformation means nothing of the past will remain, which is what is needed today if you want to create a new world, if you want a new generation to have a fresh life. It's been expressed in so many ways. Being in this part of the world, what they're familiar with generally, someone said, leave the dead to the dead, it's very significant. This is not coming out of recklessness, this is not coming out of unconcern, but this is coming with the concern that you must be a fresh life. You can learn many things from the past about how to conduct yourself, but there is nothing to learn from the past about how to be. Because you are a complete life by yourself. You don't have to learn how to be a life from the past. Maybe you have to learn how to be a good engineer. Maybe you have to learn how to be something else in the society from the past, but you don't have to learn how to be a life from the past, because past has nothing to do with this. This is a fresh life and this is a complete life. Consciousness is that dimension which is the very source of who we are. Our intentions, our actions, our thoughts and our attitudes are a consequence of that. Or in other words, we are trying to fix the consequence without fixing the source. Now all these distinctions of variety of things that they said, gender discriminations, racial discriminations, every kind, okay. Somebody is a Hindu, somebody is a Muslim, somebody is a Googler, it becomes a religion after some time, believe me. Second generation, they will become a religion by themselves. Yes. I'm saying, you see a football match going on, it's like a religion, two different clubs. They're willing to fight and kill each other. It's just a game. So, where does this come from? See, the nature of being human is this. If you give me 2 minutes. See, there are 4 dimensions of our mind. In modern societies, the nature of our education has constipated our mind in such a way because we are just largely using just one dimension, which we call as the intellect. The other dimensions of mind, if I have to use Indian terminology, it means buddhi, ahankara, manas and chitta. What buddhi means is the intellect. You do what you want. The nature of the intellect is to slice things open and see. If you leave the world in the hands of your intellect will chop it into a million pieces and will want to chop it into further micro pieces and want to chop it into further micro pieces depending upon how sharp your intellect is. The sharper your intellect, the more you dissect the world. You cannot stop it because that is the nature of the intellect and it's good. So you must apply intellect only to know the material aspects of life. You can't know life this way. Jay, if I want to know you, can I dissect you?
No.
So, but if I want to know, if a doctor wants to know some aspect of you materially, what's wrong with you, he will take a biopsy and in a way, he opens it up and looks at it. It's okay on that level. But I can't know you as a person by dissecting you. I can't know you as a life by dissecting you. I can know a part of your body, maybe. Similarly, I can know parts of the world to make use of it, but I can't know life as such. So intellect has been over-eulogized. In the last 150 years, this is a European impact on the rest of the world, where we think our thought is supreme. Someone went to the extent of saying, I think so I exist or whatever. I want to ask all of you a simple question. Tell me, is it because we exist we may think? Or is it because we think we exist? Which way is it? Hello? Because we exist, we may think. Because people are in such a state of mental diarrhea all the time, non-stop it's going on, they think it's more of an existence than existence. But my head is all the time empty unless I want to think about something. So I know thought is not necessary, I can just live here without the thought. When I want, I will think, otherwise I'll keep quiet. Just like my hand, if I want, I use it, otherwise I keep it here. Similarly, you must be able to do this with your mind. Just because you lost control over your mind and you think it's everything because it's entering into every aspect of your life where it has no business. Thought has been over-eulogized by people. And the very nature of the thought is such that if you think, it must be logical. It cannot be any other way. Well, what somebody is thinking may look illogical to you, but they have found their own logic. The most extreme person that you have met, within himself or herself, they have their own logic, isn't it so? They are not speaking illogically as far as they are concerned. They have found their own kind of logic. Logic means it needs two. Logic means it needs division. Now, with logically you're trying to arrive at inclusive consciousness, it's not going to happen. Because you're using a knife to stitch, this is not going to work. If you use a knife to cut, it's efficient. You use a knife to stitch things together, you'll only tear it up further. So my thought and your thought, I'm telling you, whatever great meetings you have, conference, I've been to every kind of peace conference on the planet. What happens there? It's just short of war. After some time it heats up, on the second day anyway it's over, they all get drunk in the evening and they go home. If you make them stay there for a week, I'm telling you, right there, there'll be a battle. Yes, it is true. I'm not saying this with any disdain. I made a sincere effort to participate in all these conferences at one time, believing they are going to lead to peace. But last 8 years ago, I decided I'll never again go to these events because people are professional conference attendees. They're making a living out of it. It's not about peace. So, the next dimension of intelligence is called as ahankara. Ahankara means identity. This is important, that in modern societies, we have not cultured our children to culture their identity. When I say identity, the fundamental identity for you is always your body. This racial thing that concerns him and concerns all of us. I'm darker than him, you know. I face it all the time, joyfully, but I face it everywhere I go. I have extra features which make me further discriminated. But our first identity is with the body. When we identified with the body, the color of the skin also becomes part of it. Why do we identify with the body? Because our experience is limited to this. If you say me, you mean this, isn't it? Because your experience of life is limited to this, naturally you're identified with this and this is you and this is how you look. Somebody looks so different, whether in gender or because of race or because of maybe just fashion. Who knows what makes them different? But suddenly, this is me, that's you, is established. But we sit here in this hall, whatever the color of our skin, whatever our religion, whatever our gender, we are inhaling and exhaling the same air. But we have no issue. Body has no problem. But the identity has a problem. You're identified with something. We have not cultured our children right from an early age that your identity should be universal. This is something in India, traditionally, before you start education for a child, there's something called as Vidyarambham, where the first chant that they must do is that my identification with the entire cosmos. Without this, you should not give education to a child, that is the understanding. Because education is seen as an empowerment. You should not empower a person who has limited identifications. Because it doesn't matter whether it's of individual nature or of family or of community or race, religion, nation, it doesn't matter. Once you have limited identity, you will cause disharmony, you will cause cruel things, thinking you're doing the right thing. I know the debate, the source of… the debate always goes to ISIS and things like this. I want you to understand this. These people, looking at their actions, you may be sitting here, I know I'm getting into a minefield. Sitting here, all of us think these are horrible people. But you must understand this, they believe they are doing the greatest thing that a human being can do. They're working for God. There can be no better employer. Not Google, God.
Who you've never prayed to.
Huh? That's my problem. But I'm saying, you should have seen this, you know, I'm sure you guys can Google anything. You must see, there is a press meet that the Afghan Taliban is conducting with the international media just before United States invaded Afghanistan. All these young guys with long beards and big turbans, they're all sitting like this. And they're asking questions. Just then they had, bombed that Buddha statue and they made this thing that girls should not go to school and many other things. So these kind of questions are coming. Whatever you ask them, they say, in our book, in our holy book, our prophet, our God said this, we're just doing that. I was just watching these guys, I had tears in my eyes. These are wonderful guys. These are guys who are willing to die for what they believe in. But they've been screwed up by the scriptures. Yes, these are wonderful people who are willing to die for what they think is right, all right? A man who's willing to die for what he thinks is right is a great man, but look at the consequence. Simply because of limited identity. So this ahankara, this identity is what wields the intellect. If you hold the right identity, from an early age, if it's brought into us that your identity is with the entire cosmos, because nothing happens here without everything's involvement in you. We are sitting on this round planet which is spinning and moving at a great speed in the middle of nowhere. You don't know where it begins, where it ends, this thing. And look at us sitting here and talking. How many forces in the existence are keeping you and me in place on this chair? So there is no way we can exist without the involvement of all this. But talking about this intellectually is not going to help, because if you try to understand intellectually, you're using a knife, further you will divide. So there is another dimension of intelligence within you which can make you come to an experience of this. The next dimension of intelligence is called as manas. Manas means it's a huge silo of memory. There are 8 types of memory in this. I'll just name them, I'll not go into this. These 8 types of memory are referred to as elemental memory, atomic memory, evolutionary memory, karmic memory, sensory memory, and in the karmic memory there are 2 types. One is called sanchita and prarabdha. There is a bank of memory which determines the very shape and size of your body. There's another one which is right now in play. So 2 dimensions of karmic memory. Inarticulate memory, that there is memory but you can never articulate, but it's finding expression. When you see a chair, you know this is where you should sit, not there. You didn't think about it because there is a memory in you that this is where you must sit. When you see a glass, you know this is how you must hold. This is not simple. Without this knowledge, you cannot do this. There is an enormous memory which allows you to do almost everything automatically because an inarticulate memory is constantly in action. And there is articulate memory which is very minuscule part of your memory. The next dimension of intelligence is most important, this is called as chitta. This is an intelligence without an iota of memory in it, unsullied by memory. See, memory means a boundary. You guys are always dealing with information. Today you're in technology. I think memory does not mean what's here, memory means all over the place. Memory is a boundary. What I know is always a boundary. What I do not know is a limitless possibility, isn't it? We have misunderstood the power of ignorance. Our knowledge is always bound within boundaries. Our ignorance is boundless. So always in the yogic system, we identified with our ignorance, never with our knowledge. This is something we must do in a technology company, because that's where the possibility is. That is where the new terrain is, in your ignorance, not in your knowledge. So, chitta is unsullied by memory, it's just pure intelligence. Right now, if you eat an apple, it turns into a human being. You cannot do it with your brains. Even your brains were created by what you eat, isn't it? There is an intelligence here which is capable of transforming anything to this because it is making use of the memory in the manas and making this happen. But the most important dimension of your intelligence is chitta. In today's education systems, in today's social conditions, there is no effort to dip into deeper dimensions of our intelligence. We're just too enamored with our own intellect and now using this knife to stitch everything.
Well, you should know that even at Google, when we interview people, we have something called GCA that we look for, which is general cognitive ability. I suppose that would fall into that intellect dimension. Most of us weren't raised where we were told from an early age to identify with the cosmos. So, is there any hope for us, or are we lost?
See, identifying with the cosmos is just another thought. As a thought, it doesn't do much, it makes people little airy-brained and they'll start acting funny. You become new agey, you know, I love the cosmos. It's very easy to love the cosmos because it's not here with you. You got to love somebody next to you, there's lots of problems. See, this wanting to set up boundaries, the instinct of wanting to set up boundaries is so deep. You see a dog peeing all over the place, not because he has some urinary problem. He's building a kingdom. You know? It's a pea kingdom, but it's a kingdom, all right? He's building a kingdom. Every human being also doing the same thing because there are 2 dimensions of your intelligence. One is designed to create self-preservation. One aspect of your intelligence is designed for self-preservation, which is your intellect. The chitta, that dimension of the intelligence is designed to make you expand. Once you have come as a human being, this is your issue fundamentally. Whoever you are, whatever you are right now in your life, you want to be something more. If that something more happens, you want to be something more. If that something more happens, you want to be something more. I'm sure you guys want to set up Google Maps for Mars. Yes, if that happens for the entire universe, if it's possible. Because this is the nature of being human. There is one dimension which always wants to expand, another dimension which always wants to build walls. You build a wall, you feel safe. After 2 days, you understand the walls of self-preservation are also the walls of self-imprisonment. You want to break it? You break it and you put a new wall there and you think this is great, this is freedom. After some time you feel that's not it and you want to expand it. These two dimensions are not opposing each other, they are not diametrically opposite to each other. They are complementary. There is only one thing about you which needs preservation, that's your physicality. This body must be preserved, because if you break it, you can't fix it. Everything else in you right now, suppose I take out all your thoughts, all your emotions, all your ideas, all your philosophies, all your belief systems and thrash them right here, break them into pieces. You can come up with fresh thoughts, fresh emotions, fresh belief systems, fresh philosophies, just like that. So all those must be every day put into the… what do you call them? The shredder. You must have a pulverizer, because shredder means they'll go again, pick it up and fix it. You must have a pulverizer for yourself before you go to bed. Today's ideas, today's thoughts, today's belief systems, today's experiences, you must leave the dead to the dead.
Let me challenge that, because I thought something that Pavni said was very interesting. And she said almost the wound becomes the healer, or sometimes you hear the wounded become the healer. So you can take some of that. Can't you not transform some of those things that have been difficult and use that energy, use your intellect to do something for good?
So the experience of life can cause two things. All this is nice when small things happen. When really major things happen to you, the wounds are so big for people, they don't heal in a lifetime, many of them, okay? So the choice is just this, the experience of life, whatever happens to us, you can either make it into a wound or into wisdom. You can either become wise or you can become wounded. If you become wise, you will become a solution. If you become wounded, you will also become one more problem. It's a choice we have.
So where does this wisdom come from? How do we access, if we're so used to using one of these four, and probably like most of the people in the audience, I wasn't even aware of that there are these other dimensions. What's a starting point? What's a way to access beyond the intellect?
See, it's like this. Right now there is water in this glass. This is definitely not you, yes?
Yeah.
But if you drink it, it becomes you. What is it that you did with this water, that something that's not you became you? When you say inclusiveness, this is all you're talking about. Something that is not you, you want to make it a part of you in some way, isn't it? So this is right now not you, but if you drink it, it becomes you. So what is it that happened technically for you is just this. Right now, I'm asking you take your right hand, all of you, take your right hand and touch your left hand. Is that you? Hello? Touch the chair on which you're sitting. Is that you? How do you know this? What is the basis of this? How do you know this is me and this is not me? Here there are sensations, here there are no sensations. Or in other words, what you're saying is, whatever is in the boundaries of my sensation is me, whatever is outside the boundaries of my sensation is not me, isn't it? Right now this is not me, if I drink it and include it into the boundaries of my sensation, this becomes me, isn't it? Now, the boundaries of your sensations are such that if you make your life energies very exuberant, you will see they will expand. If it happened to you, suppose, it should have happened to many of you, there was a moment in your life when you felt so joyful, tears came to you. Did it happen to you? You were so joyful or loving, tears came to you. At such a moment, if you take your hand and just put it 6 to 8 inches away from your body, right here, you will feel sensations. If such things did not happen to you, I can do something horrible to you so that you experience something. We can chop off your right leg. If you chop off your right leg, the leg is gone, but still the sensory leg may remain intact for a period of time. You heard of this phantom leg? Leg is physical, leg is gone, but the sensory leg is still there. This means sensory body has a structure of its own. If your energies become very vibrant and exuberant within you, your sensory body all expands. Whatever… suppose my sensory body became as big as this, now you become a part of me in my experience. If it became as big as this hall, all these people become a part of me in my experience, because my sensory body has stretched. We can do a small experiment. You okay to be a guinea? Hello?
Yeah.
What we will do is, with your eyes closed you have to do this, but right now observe me. What you do is, with your eyes closed, just rub this briskly like this for 2 minutes, let me say, 1 minute. And briskly. Keep your eyes closed and just hold your palms 3 to 4 inches away from each other with your eyes closed. Something happening between your hands? Hello? Okay, please open your eyes. So just a little bit of rubbing, you didn't do it for a minute either, just 20 seconds. You rub it and suddenly something happening between these two hands, simply because of vigorous movement, the sensory body has expanded. You can feel something happening right here. You know why people are rubbing each other all the time? It's an effort to include someone who is not a part of you as yourself. If this happens, if this happens in a very basic physical level, we call this sexuality. If it happens emotionally, we call this love. If it happens mentally, it gets labeled as greed and ambition and conquest. If it happens on the level of your sensory body, we call this yoga. Now, yoga means union. Union does not mean you caused the union. Anyway, it is happening as one. You allowed yourself to experience it. That means the walls of self-preservation you loosened up a little bit, that's all. Why you want somebody close to you, why you want a loved one in your life is, somewhere you want to loosen the walls of self-preservation where you don't have to worry about protecting yourself. Suddenly you feel one with them. And once you feel one with them, in some way you want to be in touch with them, because you're trying to loosen up your sensory body in such a way that you can experience that which is not a part of you as a part of yourself. Now, this need not limit it to be one person or anything like that. This need not be biologically connected. If you can sit here with your life energies at its peak of exuberance, you will experience the whole universe as yourself. Then we say you're a yogi.
And you had that experience 34 years ago. You talked about it a little bit yesterday. I'm just curious, for those of us that haven't had a peak experience where we've had this sense of union, what advice, what step would you take if we are at that place where we think, all right, I'm willing to try this out. I'm a skeptic. Don't know what the sensory body is. I had a little taste of it here. What would be the next step if we wanted to try for ourselves?
See, let's describe what is being a skeptic. Being a skeptic means you don't believe anything unless it truly makes sense to you. Most people are just downright suspicious. But they think they're skeptics. No, they're not, they don't qualify as skeptics. They're just suspicious about everything. This comes from a certain fear within you that everything around you can be wrong. Suspicion means you made a conclusion about something that you do not know. Believing something positively or believing something negatively is not different. They're the same things. You believe something that you do not know. If you… skeptic means, whatever I do not know, I do not know. I don't assume things in my life. What I know, I know. I think everybody should come to this much sense and straightness in our life that what I know, I know. What I do not know, I do not know. It's perfectly fine. I do not know, it's a tremendous possibility. Only if you see I do not know, the longing to know, seeking to know, and the possibility of knowing arises. So if you are a skeptic, you are an ideal candidate. If you're a believer, we have to make you, debrief you. Because…
Shredder out.
Because you assume too many things that you do not know. You know the geography of heaven, though you can't operate the local Google map.
Well, good. Well, we'll be taking questions, so be thinking about the question you might want to have. I think, one more question I want to ask is, how do we… We've been talking about some things that are very big. I think they're promising, but yet think about the conversation we had earlier. And how do we tie these two things together? How do they relate in your mind?
Those of you who are interested, because right now we must understand this. Your intellect needs data to function. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Hello? Without data, your intellect is useless. It needs data, that's why you guys are in the business. Everybody knows everything in the universe right now not because they went there and saw it, because they Googled it up. Because intellect feels stupid without data. Now, the nature of the intellect is like this only, that it feeds upon the data. Where does the data come to you? What you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste, what you touch. In the very nature of things, these 5 sense organs, which are the main agents of gathering information for you, are all outward bound. You can see what's around you. You can't roll your eyeballs inward and scan yourself. You can hear this, so much activity here, you cannot hear this. If an ant crawls upon your hand, you can feel it. So much blood flowing, you cannot feel it. Because in the very nature of things, your sense organs are outward bound. You cannot use these to turn inward. There's another dimension of perception which needs to be activated. Why is it not active in me? Because the sense organs are instruments of survival. They come on when you're born, whatever kind you are. Anyway it comes on for a dog, pig, cat, elephant, for everybody. Similarly, it comes on for us. Whatever is needed for survival for any biological creature, it turns on at the time of birth because it's needed, otherwise you won't survive. But anything beyond survival process, without striving, it would not have entered your life, isn't it? Anything that you know, from an alphabet to whatever else you know… I'm sorry, I'm not talking about your brand, I'm talking about the real alphabet. Anything that you know, from reading to writing to using a computer or singing a song or whatever, you know these things with certain striving. I want you to remember when you're 3–4 years of age, that damn A, how complicated it was. As if it was not enough, there were 2 versions of it which freaked the hell out of you. Today you can write with your eyes closed. But still, there are adults in the world who did not strive in that direction. Even today you ask them to write, they will struggle, yes or no? Without striving, anything beyond survival would not enter your life and will not enter your life. So turning inward is not a survival process. So there are 2 fundamental dimensions within you: instinct of self-preservation, longing to expand limitlessly. Both are true for a human being. This is essentially a human problem on the planet. No other creature wants to expand limitlessly. They're only thinking of survival. Their stomach full, life settled. For you, stomach empty, only 1 problem, stomach full, 100 problems. Yes, all your trouble begins after After stomach gets full, isn't it? Because this is longing to expand limitlessly. In the evolutionary process, we can say this. For every other creature, nature has drawn two lines within which they live and die. They're quite fine. But once you become human, there is only a bottom line, there is no top line. So what humanity is suffering and confused about is not their bondage, they're suffering their freedom. What do you do with them?
Wow. All right, well, I'm gonna invite anyone…
All these identities
Yeah.
of religion, race, caste, creed, nationality is they're trying to set their own bondage. Because no bondage has been given to you by nature. You're trying to set your own bondage so that you feel secure somehow.
And so that's part of the motivation
Yes.
that's driving…
All
The
these
attack.
identities, being identified with the color of your skin, with whatever nonsense you believe in, and nationality, just a cloth, a flag, people will stand there and tears will come to them, isn't it? Just look at that. It really amazes me. And on one level it's beautiful, on another level it's super ugly that you get identified with all these kind of things. People can get identified with a symbol, with a word, with just about anything, all right? So you're trying to create some artificial boundary of your own. Once you create this boundary and you have another boundary, I have my boundary, when they meet, we clash. It's very significant. This is not coming out of recklessness. This is not coming out of unconcern, but this is coming with the concern that you must be a fresh life. You can learn many things from the past about how to conduct yourself, but there is nothing to learn from the past about how to be. Because you are a complete life by yourself. You don't have to learn how to be a life from the past. Maybe you have to learn how to be a good engineer. Maybe you have to learn how to be something else in the society from the past, but you don't have to learn how to be a life from the past, because past has nothing to do with this. This is a fresh life and this is a complete life. Consciousness is that dimension which is the very source of who we are. Our intentions, our actions, our thoughts,
Thank you so much for joining us today, Sadhguru. I think the audience is very interested in what you have to say. I guess to start, they define inclusive consciousness. I'd love to hear your thoughts on…
they did not define it.
They did not, okay. Well, I was just gonna ask you what's missing, so you can start.
With all due respect, they spoke about intent, right intent. They spoke about right kind of thoughts, emotions, attitudes, and to some extent actions. There is no consciousness in this. If we are understanding that the way we think, feel and act is our consciousness, no. It is like we are mistaking a plant, we are mistaking the flower for the soil. See, there are four dimensions of our mind. In modern societies, the nature of our education has constipated our mind in such a way because we are just largely using just one dimension, which we call as the intellect. The other dimensions of mind, if I have to use Indian terminology, it means buddhi, ahankara, manas and chitta. What buddhi means is the intellect. You do what you want. The nature of the intellect is to slice things open and see. If you leave the world in the hands of your intellect will chop it into a million pieces and will want to chop it into further micro pieces and want to chop it into further micro pieces depending upon how sharp your intellect is. The sharper your intellect, the more you dissect the world. You cannot stop it. because that is the nature of the intellect. We are mistaking expressions for the source. This is something that's happening everywhere, not just here. People think by changing attitudes, their consciousness will change. No. By changing attitudes, certain actions will change. Yes, positive, beneficial, but it is not truly transformative. Change will happen, transformation will not happen. If I have to define a distinction between change and transformation, change means the residue of the past will still remain. A transformation means nothing of the past will remain, which is what is needed today if you want to create a new world, if you want a new generation to have a fresh life. It's been expressed in so many ways. Being in this part of the world, what they're familiar with generally, someone said, leave the dead to the dead. And our attitudes are a consequence of that. Or in other words, we are trying to fix the consequence without fixing the source. Now all these distinctions of variety of things that they said, gender discriminations, racial discriminations, every kind, okay? Somebody is a Hindu, somebody is a Muslim, somebody is a Googler, it becomes a religion after some time, believe me. Second generation, they will become a religion by themselves. Yes. I'm saying, you see a football match going on, it's like a religion, two different clubs. They're willing to fight and kill each other. It's just a game. So, where does this come from? See, the nature of being human is this. If you give me 2 minutes